We've probably seen this clip. If we play Tony Hawk, or if you watch anything Rodney Mullen, it's likely that this pops up. At first, when you glance over it, it goes something like this. You just see it quickly like this, and you can't really see what's happening. If you watch this from VHS, you don't want to go back and rewind it too much. You might maybe do that once, but then still it's hard. And now in the digital age, it's very easy to see what tricks people are doing, because I can put it in Premiere Pro and have it as quick as I want. What we see is that it's not a heel flip, it's an under flip. And if you're gonna count what the person is doing in terms of spin, if it's a 540, 360, then first we can count the body. So you see a loading dock. He doesn't land straight from the loading dock. He doesn't go here, right, this way. That would be straight. He goes crooked, right? So he spins more than a loading dock. But he starts not straight from the loading dock either. So he goes crooked from the loading dock and lands crooked. So 360 we can see. He obviously does a 360. And then the board, what is the total spin of the board? So there you see it goes 180, another 180, and another 180. So 180, 180, 180, 540. And then here is the problem. This is a 540 with a 360. That's a bigger spin, right? But can we conclude that it is in fact a bigger spin? Because look at the wheels. When he does the first 180, the board lifts from the ground here. And then you see in the next frame, the board is in the air. So, and that's almost a 180. If it starts here, it's basically a 180, a little bit less than a 180. Then the board goes into the air. Right, so can we say this is a pivot? His gravity, he's not leaning onto the board in order to do his 180. He jumps into the air while the board spins by itself in a pivot. So this is a type of ghost pivot, since he leads the board to do something automatically by itself. That's a ghost maneuver, right? If we don't count that, part, we can call this we can just say it's a 180, right? That is a nollie 180, whatever, right? So it's a nollie 180, and then the board spins another 360. So what do you call that? So he doesn't start the flip until he has spun 180, and then he flips it in a varial flip, right? So 180 with the board, and then a late switch back foot varial flip, or a fakie front foot, but late back foot under flip, right? Varial flip. And then he continues after it has flipped that. He spins another 180 in symmetry with the board, or parallel with the board, and then land. So this is so then we have a nollie 180, late switch back foot under flip, big flip, under big flip. That's interesting. Nollie 180, switch back foot under big flip. Very, very interesting name. Then we could go technical about it, because we like to do that, and say this is not a nollie 180. If somebody did this in a game of skate, we wouldn't call that a nollie 180, right? We will call this something else. It's something like a non-gravitational 1 foot pivot. This is not exactly a nollie south, because nollie south, his feet would be around here. This is a kung fu stance or something. So we will call this the kung fu south, the kung fu position. So just to invent a name. The names are really not that important. It's just important to be consistent with the names. If we call this the kung fu position, a real kung fu position will be here. The foot would go kick here. But this is, if you've seen in Kung Fu, they kick downwards. So this is a downward Kung Fu kick, but his foot isn't on the board. So the foot is the subject of the attack. So some form of Kung Fu, whatever. So nollie 180 Kung Fu to a switch, back foot, big underflip. And there you go. That's a pretty decent name, at least much better name than nollie 360 heel flip, and much better than nollie 360 kick flip, because we recognize that this is a underflip. This is a late underflip, no doubt about it, because he hasn't started flipping here and he spun 180. He's in the air before he starts flipping. It's a late underflip. Does he pop it though? He doesn't pop it. The pop or the air comes from the underflip. That's the point of the trick. That's the point of an underflip. The point of the underflips in the start with the old school kickflip, for example, that's an underflip. When you have both your feet in acid stance and then you flip in the middle of the board. The point of that was to get the board in the air to flip. So the original underflip, which were this old school kickflip, were supposed to be a way to get the board in the air. So this is actually very acceptable to not pop, because that's the point of the trick. So I'm very proud of how skateboarding has gotten, and that we keep using these variants and don't force ourselves to pop all the time. So this is it's because of things like this. But we didn't know when we watched this on VHS. We didn't know if you were supposed to pop or not, because you didn't see if Rodney Mullen were supposed to pop. But then again, you shouldn't do something just because other people do it. But then again, maybe you want to follow trends, and then you have to do what other people do. So, I mean, it's your choice. We round it up to nollie 180 kung fu, switch, late, back foot, big flip. And that will be the final verdict. How do you say that? Verdict.